Every Mouldy Biscuit, a story by Dalrymple. Growing up in South London, our neighbours on one side were white. My teachers were white. Same for shopkeepers, unless they were Asian, but by and large, white. School was an equal divide of black and white, and my neighbourhood, along with church congregation, was pretty much mixed between the two. I like people. This came from Mum, who instilled fairness in us and made sure we did not judge and treated people as just that, people. Paul was white. We would say hello and walk to school together sometimes. I guess we got closer as we got older. The year I turned 25, it was Mum who did not flinch at the sight of me standing in her front room next to the white man who would change my life for good. "Mum, this is Paul Tapper." "You say what, Tappin?" Mum asked. "I know a Bajan family called Tappin, not your people, mark you." She gave a chuckle. "Nah, sorry, Mrs. Forbes, actually it's Tapper," Paul humbly corrected. Once we walked out into the night air after an evening with my parents and younger brother and sister, I felt close to Paul. We walked slow and I prolonged our time together. I was happy. The days went by and Paul and I were a for sure couple. Folk would ask after him when they saw me, and vice versa. There was nothing strange or out of the ordinary, except for the fact that I had not met any of his family. I only knew a few of Paul's friends, who always talked about my various hairstyles or how many Jamaican dishes they had eaten, despite my numerous corrections on the subject of me being from a Guyanese family. "Oh yeah, Ghana, West Africa, right?" they would crow knowledgeably, dripping with ignorance. I was done explaining. Was I Paul's girlfriend, or was I Paul's black girlfriend? It was getting hard to tell. As time went by, Paul and I rubbed along well, and we seemed to get closer. We socialised with my mates mostly at pubs and clubs, but I was still yet to meet Paul's family. What I was beginning to meet, more often than not, was a series of over-rehearsed one-liners. "It ain't the right time, babe," he would say. "My folks are old-fashioned. That just don't get the whole Black Lives Matter thing," and more besides. He was quite anxious about me meeting his dad. He said his dad would not understand us. "What's to understand? I'm your woman, done," I would protest. "My dad was brought up in another time, babe, that's all. It just ain't worth discussing the issue." Paul said this, trying to shut the conversation down. "Issue? You see us as an issue? We're together. Everyone else has had to deal with that fact, Paul." I could feel myself getting angry. "I have never been, nor shall I ever be, anyone's issue." I walked out of the room. He was staying at mine that night, and we went to bed without saying another word to each other. So the following morning I was glad to see that Paul had left for work, and any awkwardness between us would be avoided. A day off at home alone calmed me down. I had something to talk about that was far more important than yet another argument about people who were not in the same room, let alone this relationship. I was pleased to see Paul upon his arrival to my flat. "Let's not stay in tonight, babe. Fancy a meal out?" A smile trying to look cute enough to get a yes. "My treat," I quickly added. I gave a gleeful skip as we walked towards my local Indian restaurant. I was happy, Paul agreed, as I had much to talk to him about. I was excited to talk. As we walked, we received stares and hard looks. I felt the stares. I clutched Paul's arm tighter than usual, not out of fear, but to show our solidarity. We approached the restaurant, and standing at a nearby railing was a group of neighbourhood characters who knew my dad and always said hello to me. Tall, black, handsome, and loud. "Hey daughter, you want me buy your dinner?" laughed one of the men. I said nothing with a smile. "Yes, my man, you know I feel of a beautiful black queen like that one." The group of brothers laughed as Paul stopped and seemed to be in possession of a hard stare for each group member. I pulled Paul toward the restaurant door. "Yeah man, that the daughter nice," another backed up his comrade's approval of me. I planned to speak up for myself and bring the brothers into line with a smile and jokes about how you should never keep a hungry black woman waiting for her food, you know. "Yeah man, respect boss. You know if you treat a sister like that there." Just at that moment, Paul dropped my hand and responded, Who are you talking to, boy? If you could get a job rather than stand around on the street shouting after those of us who work to pay taxes into a benefit system that you abuse, she might have picked you. Instead, she went for an upgrade. You add nothing to the economy, nor do you do anything for your community, you useless black waste of space. There it was. The sins of the father passed down like a family heirloom. Paul stopped and, breathing heavily, turned to me. His look was one of weak apology and desperation for me to come to his aid. I backed away into the restaurant. He was almost foaming at the mouth. How could I support that? I mean, what did he say? Did I hear him correctly? Paul screamed my name as I left him to be dealt with a now circling group of very vocal spectators and passers-by who became an audience to the theatrical street tragedy that was now unfolding. A kind waiter offered me a seat and water as he asked if I was all right. Yeah, we're fine. We? He asked, confused, looking between me and the commotion outside. Yep, we, I said. He doesn't seem all right, the waiter snorted derisively, and he turned to walk away. I looked out the window at Paul, who was unrecognizable as the man I'd fallen in love with. Outside brawling, shouting his point across, there was no point in asking if he did not see those men were just like me. There was no point in asking because there was no answer. With tears rolling down my face, I looked down at my stomach. Okay, so now how do I announce you're on the way? I can't even tell him. I spoke out loud. I could feel the waiter staring at me. Continuing to soothe my physical discomfort with increasingly rhythmical belly strokes, I sipped the water offered as the altercation outside brewed. I sat in a state of disbelief as the reality of what just happened and what was to come squarely hit me. I hugged my belly, throwing my arms around myself and rocking gently. I'll fight for you, guide and protect you, I whispered with determination. The waiter, now displaying a look of concern as if he had allowed a madwoman onto the premises, hovered at a safe distance. With the tears continuing upon their cascade, I loudly stated, as if wanting Paul to hear and yet still addressing my stomach, I promise to punish anybody who calls you out of your name, baby, and that includes your father. Every Mouldy Biscuit, a story by Dalrymple. You have been listening to a spoken word production for SoFF Creations.